That looks great, Michelle.
One of those Liberty Mutual commercials where they stand in front of the Statue of Liberty.
I think we're live now.
Yeah, we're typically live. We're just waiting for Mr. Hilton.
Yeah.
But
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello, Mrs. Bearden.
There he is. Good evening, Mr. Hilton. Whenever you are ready to go, I think, Mr. Santiago, can you confirm that we are up? Yep, we're live. Okay, so Mr. Hilton, whenever you're ready to go.
Okay. So I'll declare this meeting of the Facilities Finance Committee to order. And does anybody have any comments?
There are no public comments, Mr. Hilton.
Thank you. So now we'll go right into Mr. Willauer. I believe you have some options for us.
Thank you, Mr. Hilton. Good evening, committee members. I just wanted to provide some feedback first on a couple questions that came up last month. One being why the price difference from EI's report compared to what I have researched independently so far. One is we're only looking at top priorities. So we're looking at the items that we know need to be fixed. So EI's report has a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being needs attention soon, 1 being could be considered or optional. So we're only looking at the necessities. So the necessities would include our roofs at the admin in Edgewood and also the HVAC systems. And right behind that would be windows and doors. As far as the components of the HVAC systems themselves, the numbers that I've come up with are lower. One, because we're looking at more of an actual number. EI is looking at a broad number of XYZ. This is the potential of what this could cost. So we're looking at a little bit more real number. So they're telling us what to plan for. I would say not worst case, but could be up to this amount. So they're not protecting, but they're giving that as the number of a very broad number to what we should expect that it could be up to. So I did want to provide that if there's any questions at all on that.
Mrs. Spencer, are you trying to speak?
Sorry, I'm pressing random stuff. So thank you. My question about that is, so what you're saying, Dan, Mr. Dan, that the number you used in the meeting last week or last month is the actual number, or is it an estimate based off a percentage, or is it as close to what the real number would be because you eliminated some of the major projects off of the quote?
Yeah, the numbers I presented, that was from an actual quote. Now, again, there's still variations of that. There's options that we can have, but that was real numbers on an estimate of what we're looking for both buildings. Yes.
I think committee members, just for clarification, the best example, because we asked Bruce this very question. So, Bruce, if you recall, when he presented to us, I think a couple of times actually, he said, hey, these are rough numbers. And when I said, well, what do you mean by that? And, why? I don't understand. He said, well, think of it this way. If you look at a door, the door is $600, right? To take the door out, pop the door out of the hinges, have a guy come, hang it. Okay, that's $600. But what if the hinges are broken? What if the wood is rotted? What if, up top there's some level of damage and, we have to take that entire frame out. So what you're going to see me write is $2,000. And the reason that I write $2,000 is because when it ends up being $600, you're not saying, hey, you lied to me. You're saying, good job, Bruce. So I think that, and he was out loud about that, and he did explain that to the rest of us, but we just wanted to make sure that everybody, is understanding what some of these numbers mean. So right now, what Dan is doing is he's knocking all around the frame. He's already checked the hinges, and he's saying, okay, I'm thinking this is going to be $600. But that's not because EI was off. It's just that they included worst case scenario, whereas Dan is saying, okay, I don't think we're at worst case scenario. Here's where we're at. So I think that that's pretty much the difference. Mr. Willauer, did I give a good example to illustrate what you were trying to say there?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, thank you for that, but that wasn't really my question. So are we like closer to the number that you quoted last month? Is that the actual number, and is there a time frame on that number? Is it this quote is good until, a year, 6 months, 3 months? Because we're not getting this done right now, are we? Or are we getting this done right now?
Sure. I have it actually in front of me.
Okay.
As most contractors do now, we're down to 30 days. They know how prices change, anything from importing, anything from cost of refrigerants, especially with HVAC. It goes off the market and it's daily. So they're pricing off of current conditions. So when I go back to them and say a month or two, I would expect to see several more $1,000s. Absolutely. I don't think we're looking at 20%, even 10%, but we will climb as we continue to push this off. Yeah.
So when are we looking to get this done?
So there's a couple variables. Our hope is going to be summer 2025 or 2026, and that would be definitely for the admin. Edgewood's a little more complicated, and we have two parts. We have to deal with the roofing situation and our HVAC at both. Edgewood's a little more involved, so we may, depending on timelines and availability of equipment, have to push at least the HVAC back to 27. Again, that's a lot of variables that we have to work out on that, but we're looking in the next summer to 2 summers.
Okay, so then there's no way it's the same number.
Yeah.
It's like no way. It's gonna be closer to the number they quoted, right? Like originally, we're looking at like almost a year out, or shoot, we can't get happy over a lower number if it's only, quoted up until 30 days.
Yeah, I would say that it's going to slowly click up as we continue. But it was a good basis to have a concrete number to go off of actual equipment, of actual scope of work.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to move to share my screen. All right, so Tremco, which we've been working with for roofing proposals, they put together a slideshow for us for both of the buildings that we're talking about. So this is the first screen for Edgewood. There's a bit of writing here. I'll be able to explain as I go a little further because there's better details. The areas in blue show areas of poor drainage, and then in red, which the next slide will also show, there's some issues with the flashing as well. This is just an overview of the roof. It's currently a puff roof system that has not been replaced or redone in any ways for a very long time. So this is an example on the left. As you can see, the sediment that builds up there, that's one of the low spots. So as standing water stays there, and we get a lot of buildup from sediment, which is not the best thing to have on there, especially long term. And on the right is an example where you should be able to see it's covered up there in the red circle, but there should be flashing coming through there and the brick into the base, and that's all covered up. And that can create an issue. One, because we can't see what's going on. Two, if there's a problem there, we can't really find out where it's going. So that is an additional thing that Tremco wants us to look at, and gladly they will come in and speak to us all about to explain this better than I can. But there is some options there as well on how far we want to go. And this is just an example of the surface that Tremco would apply to the roof at Edgewood. It is a membrane roof system, 30-year warranted, very high quality. All the seams are welded, and it's a very, very great roofing system by today's standards. This is a shot of the admin. Fortunately, our area in red, that's where the boardroom is. That is all EPDM and in very good condition, so we don't have to touch that for a bit of time. The areas in green and blue are similar, but there is some differences, which I'll dive into here in the next couple slides. So it's all shingles. We have some inlay gutters, downspout as well. So that would all be part of the proposed replacement. So on the left is an example of one of the valleys where the roofs meet. So all this would get freshly covered with a membrane system, pretty much the same material that will be used as Edgewood, but just to coat the gutters. So that'll totally seal up any leaks, any issues, and that's warranted as well as part of the process. And this lovely picture on the right is a example of the middle section of the building that was outlined in blue. There's actually a fiber board that was used that is above the actual decking boards. So that would need to be covered up with plywood in order to give us a base that can be nailed into correctly. Our guys have seen it in-house firsthand. If we've had a couple shingles blow off, it's because they're just nailed into the fiberboard. That pulls up, creates lots of issues. So fresh plywood would go down to give us a good base. And then this is just an example. On the left, you can see some of the K-style gutter. So that would be replaced with all new metal. And we do have an option. Standard industry standard would be just standard white as far as color. They are giving us some options. One would be more of a patina green color to keep the visual appearance of the aged copper. So that's also stuff we can get into down the road, but we do have options there, which is nice. And the sections that were on either end of the building, that's what the picture of the right shows there. So that whole gutter system would be lined, and the outside would be painted. That would be covered with flashing and painted as well. So that would all be fresh, all be covered, all be sealed. So everything together would be sealed and all covered under a 30-year warranty. This is very fluid. This is just a rough outline of what we're looking at. Tremco basically runs their project as a public bid, but they're doing all the work. They have their pre-approved vendors. They have everything in-house ready to go. So they'll do the pre-bid meeting. They're looking to do that in the next week or so, to come out and bring their contractors out and actually get eyes on the project and see what they're looking at and who's willing to bid on it and whatnot. November, we would look for approval and be able to have Tremco and the contractors start to be able to get the material for this project. And then January to May, Tremco would take care of all of our permitting, all of the pre-construction meeting, and lock in the schedule. And we would pick our colors of what we want to as far as the gutter and any facing. And as far as timeline for the actual projects, the administration building, since it is in use all year round, we would plan to do that in the spring, more towards April, May, and have that out of the way. And then they would be able to focus on Edgewood once school is out and have that done in August before students come back. And that, again, we do have a little note there that Edgewood could be time dependent on material for HVAC. So that's all the work that I have to do as this process continues on seeing where we're at on the timeline for Edgewood. And the final slide, this is just an overview of what the turnkey process includes from Tremco. As I said, they take care of all the work as far as they're meeting with their contractors, prevailing wages paid just as public bid. So we're dealing with quality contractors. All permits and code is handled by them. OSHA compliance. One of the most exciting things about this is no contractor initiated change orders. I think we can all we would enjoy that for sure. So that's what I have on the roofing. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Just because I couldn't get to the thing to raise my hand, I'll jump in. This is the first time we'd be using Tremco?
Yes, it is. I have spoken to several other neighboring districts that have had very good experiences with them, and I did some research before we even entertained this, and their reviews are very good.
Okay. And I assume like this is the top priority, right? Roofs right now are the absolute number one based on our previous conversations. This is the thing we've got to tackle before we tackle anything else.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that gets me back to windows and doors. Yes, we do need to upgrade them, but roofing is absolutely a priority.
And did you say last month that's the priority, partly because to do anything with HVAC, you have to do this first? Just
Yeah.
okay.
And
I thought that's what you did.
I have talked to both sides. I've talked to Tremco with the roofing, and I've talked to different HVAC contractors, getting as much free information as I can get. Depending what we do with the HVAC units, we may be able to get away with doing the roofs first. The biggest thing I don't want to run into is any warranty issues by having equipment put up after we have a brand new roof. So if both sides are in agreement that we won't run into that, we may be able to speed up the roof for Edgewood if we can.
Thanks.
There's no more questions. I don't see any hands. That is what I have for facilities, Mr. Hilton.
Well, thank you, Dan, and I think we're all good to go. You can proceed with the roofs, and we'll be voting next month. Is that correct, Mr. Roller?
Yes, we will. Thank you, and I'll continue to get everything prepared.
Okay, thank you. And that's it for facilities. Is that right, Mr. Willer?
Yes, that concludes what I have.
Okay, so we'll turn now to finance and Mrs. Oakley.
And I'll be substituting as Mrs. Oakley this month as she is away at a conference, and we definitely need her there. So, committee members, good evening. For your consideration tonight, as you know, Maureen always goes through the items that will likely be on the agenda for the board meeting. So the first is contracts, BCIU. These are updated Title I contracts, and it involves special education contracts, specifically Martin Luther and Access Learning Academy. One of the other, there's a couple of things that I'll speak to directly. The first is, as I intimated just a little bit at the board meeting, I've been talking to other districts to see what they are doing as it relates to the fact that we don't have a state budget. So in looking at that, and since that time, now we have a federal budget that is in question and basically frozen. So that has a lot of potential financial implications on the school district. First of all, our free lunch program runs through the federal, and it's actually United States Department of Agriculture, but because it runs through the federal, we've already been getting some warning signals. And basically what that letter said in brief is essentially you're safe for August and September. We'll see about October. So that is not a small amount of money. Actually, Michelle, would you mind putting that back up? Just because I was about to go into the next thing. So that's not about the only thing. So I have asked Mrs. Oakley to begin to research a couple of things. The first of which is Act 85 of 2016. And what that states is that when we do not have a budget and we still have to pay our bills, one of those bills are the bonds. So we pay for schools, we pay those bonds back. It's basically fancy talk for a mortgage. It's part of the bill that we pay, and the Pennsylvania Department of Education can't cover anything, but they can cover that. So our bills, it's not a monthly bill, but I have asked her to begin researching the paperwork, because if we do not get it in a timely fashion, we may miss the boat, so to speak. So we've received correspondence, and it's my intention to have her do that if it makes sense. Now, obviously, if we get a budget, it's not worth putting the time and effort, because it is labor intensive to have those bills covered until the budget is approved. But with regard to cyber school bills, obviously, um, that's a sore subject for me personally, but also one of the things that I've noticed is that other school districts are holding off on payment to cyber schools so that they have as much tax money as possible to pay for their own payroll. So that is something that I am also researching and directing Mrs. Oakley to begin doing if feasible. Unless anyone has any objection, that's the direction that I plan on going in case we do see an elongated budget battle. Any questions on that? Okay, moving on. Property tax relief. Committee members, I sent you a letter regarding the parcel of 860 Cross Street. And yes, Mrs. Spence,
Sorry, I had a question. I couldn't get to the thing fast.
no problem.
Yes. Can you repeat that if we don't have a budget statewide soon, that you will be doing what with cyber charter bill?
So two things. Number one, we'll ask PDE to cover our bond payment. And number two, we will hold off on paying any more cyber bills. Sometimes they come in quarterly, sometimes they come in monthly, and we'll simply hold off on that. There is no financial responsibility. There are actually some school districts that choose not to pay, and then it's simply taken out of their subsidy. So there is no scenario where cyber schools rather don't get paid. It's just a matter of, do they get paid right now or do they get paid later? So in using our tax dollars to pay any bills now, it obviously would mean that come January, we're looking at a scary situation in terms of payment. So it would be my objective to hold off on paying that until we know what's happening.
Okay, because I had asked Mrs. Oakley if we could just refuse to pay, and she said they take it right out of the account. That wouldn't be an option.
Mrs. Spence, you are completely correct. However, they have not voted on the budget, which means they're not taking out of anything until they get a budget in place. So it's kind of a catch-22 that I'm taking advantage of. I fully admit that.
Okay. And even though I'm on this board for 4 years, I still not adjusted to the acronyms. What is PDE?
My apologies. Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Okay, thank you. I should know that. All right.
Quite all right. We do our best to have alphabet soup in education. I should have used the full name. So, yep, thank you for the question.
Okay.
All right, moving on. So the Borough of Pottstown, specifically Mr. Keller, sent me a letter that I forwarded on to you. But just as a reminder, 860 Cross Street is a site formerly a contaminated brownfield. It has been transformed by BASF I can't remember what that stands for, but they're a chemical company. They've transformed it into a new public park with 2 basketball courts and other amenities, which the borough is already operating as an extension of Pollock Park. While the borough has a lease to own arrangement and is responsible for the annual school district tax to the tune of $1,776. In the interim, the property will become tax exempt public parkland once full ownership transfers after final groundwater clearance. And I believe that has to do with whatever contamination was there to begin with. So the borough is requesting that we, the Pottstown School District, grant local tax relief to waive the annual school district obligation, which again would be $1,776, arguing that it aligns with the property's present and future use and demonstrates great intergovernmental cooperation. So in other words, we will be avoiding costly and time-consuming appeals process through Montgomery County, which they no doubt would likely receive. So your approval would request the grant and grant the property relief. And I do have a few pictures, but I will get to that after Mr. Heidel's question. Yes, sir.
So this is the same borough that's going to hold us up for a playground at the middle school, asking us to give them a break on an area that, once again, you said BASF cleaned up for them. Okay. Meanwhile, Pollock Park, located across the street, is still fenced off and boarded up because the borough, for over 20 years since I've been living down the street from it, has not cleaned up that Superfund site. Just want to point that out, okay? Because Mr. Keller has come up very nicely, but yet the borough doesn't clean up the lot next door. Someone else cleans up this lot and they want us to cut them a break. Just putting it out there. That's all.
You are correct on that, and that middle school playground issue is the borough would say that has to do with code enforcement and more to do with Cedarville engineering than them. However, Mr. Heidel, I'm in your camp. That is still an issue for me, one which is not completely dead. But as we have other priorities, which Mr. Willauer shared with all of you, we've been letting that go. But I agree completely that intergovernmental cooperation that I talked about will be a subject that I'll be speaking with borough management on.
And just let them know as well, too, that, the residents in that area want their park. It's been 20 years and they've shut that thing down. And like I said, they've never raised the money to fix the park, but BASF fixed it across the street. Once again, just putting it out there to the public.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If it's okay, I will very quickly share my screen. It's only 1 or 2 pictures. Is that okay, Mr. Hilton?
Yes, indeed.
Let's see if I can. There we go. All right. Can everyone see that? Yes, okay. I'm not even gonna try to put it in presentation mode for fear that I lose you all. But I'll just quickly scroll here. You can see there's only a couple slides. So it's 0.86 acres, small industrial lot, and Pollock Park. You can see the previous owners there and the time period. And BASF acquired I think what happened is they acquired the business that owned the site. Ergo, it became their responsibility. So you can see there the soils, and I'll send this to anybody if you're interested. The soils and excavation, you can see the activity happening there as well as the groundwater, and then the restoration, which was just completed this July. And they are having an opening. I think most of you probably received the invitation. I think it's happening this Friday. Again, if anybody wants the details, I'm happy to resend it to you. And finally, this is what the future looks like. So the lease agreement is basically they tried to sell the property. They tried to do a lot of different things. It didn't work out. So they're using it in this way. So from a purely financial perspective, okay, can everybody see each other now? Okay, thank you. From a purely financial perspective, you know, I would hate to see us go through the court process to get there, since we will no doubt burn through much more than 1776. So it really does make sense, even though for some of us we might have to bite our tongue. Mr. Klein.
I'm not a very good tongue biter. I understand what you're saying as far as the money goes, and ultimately, we need to do that. We don't want to lose more money on this. However, since this is in lieu of intergovernmental cooperation, I don't see anything wrong with asking them how the permits are coming on the playground before we give them a final answer.
Um, you all have anticipated me. That was my absolute intent, assuming that you guys would say yes. I was going to knock on his door and say, "Hey, now that I scratched your back, let's talk about the middle school." I've now done so publicly. That was the plan. So yes, stay tuned. We again, there's some other details that to be very honest about. The borough can't control it. So we do have some other things we have to go through. Otherwise, Justin, when we ran into some initial trouble, I called, he came, we did make progress. We're just not there yet. So, Mrs. Spence.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the um multiple properties that are tax exempt in this district. That's a huge concern. I think last month there was 12, um, if I'm correct. Now, going into the future, this is another one. And even though small, it adds up, right? Considering that, we're at a deficit this year, probably will be at a deficit next year. We have no state budget. And so what's the intergovernmental, um, you know, working together to get our bills paid, from the, you know, governor's desk all the way down to our state reps, or what are they doing, right? And so it's just a whole list of are we looking out for the best interests of our students by continuing to let it slide these tax exempt properties? It must be something that we can do to fight back. Probably not this one, right? But all the other ones that continue to become tax exempt in this area, it's hurting our students, it's hurting our teachers, it's hurting you all, the admin.
Mrs.
So
Spence, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. We are working with Pottstown area and economic development. One of the things we do is we look for blighted properties through the land bank, which I'm happy to say has had much more success in the past few years than when everybody remembers when we started, and it was barely one property per year. So that is going better. That doesn't fix everything, that's for sure, and I acknowledge that. And we are constantly looking at different opportunities. And I don't mind saying publicly that if I could find a buyer for the administration building, I would be bending all of your ears on how we can put it back on the tax rolls and take the 40 or so admin employees and put them elsewhere in the district. As of right now, every person that we've talked to, they say, "Listen, Stephen, thanks, but the numbers don't work out. We would end up losing money to convert this." Um, but I mean, again, that's one project, but we are looking at others, and we continue to do so throughout the borough. And you are correct. There is no question that we need more real estate dollars back into the Pottstown School District if we're going to survive long term. But I also agree with you, Mrs. Spence. It's probably not this one. If I thought we had a prayer of holding on to it, I might think about it, but we don't. We will lose on appeal. There's no question about that. Mr. Armato.
Yes, thank you. To Mrs. Spence's point, the good news and the bad news is we live in a borough of 5.5 square miles, which I really enjoy being in a small borough. However, that does mean that since we are reliant a great deal on local property tax, because again, to your point earlier, our state government has not lived up to their constitutional and court-ordered responsibility to fund schools fairly. Every time we lose a piece of property to tax exempt, we take a big hit. You know, probably the two of the biggest examples, most recently in the past couple of years, losing the hospital as a taxing entity certainly hurt us to the tune of about $1 million a year. We have previously gone to court and unsuccessfully challenged the tax exempt status of the Hill School, which would bring, I think, a considerable amount of tax revenue to us. Again, in the good news, bad news world, in that 5.5 square miles of Pottstown, we have, I believe, over 60 churches, all tax exempt. And I'm not advocating taxing churches or whatever, but that is, again, another issue. The legislature has addressed that or attempted to address that issue several times, and I think wisely determined that challenging the tax exempt status of churches might not be the wisest course of action. So I agree 100%. Every piece of property in 5.5 square miles, it is essential that we be able to gain as much revenue from them as humanly possible. Thank you.
But if these organizations continue to buy, like, so it's not like as if they're tax exempt, they stop buying and then that's it. They continue to buy. They continue to buy tax exempt properties, and at some point it'll overrun our district and we will be in really, really dire strait, that more than we are now. So it has to be something that we can do to fight legally to prevent continuing purchasing of properties that are tax exempt in this area. And you know, sometimes you gotta try, fail, try again, because overall it's hurting us. It's gonna hurt our students, gonna wipe us out completely.
Agreed 100%.
Mrs. Bearden?
So not to beat that to a pulp, but so everything I've been listening from beginning to end, and everything, I don't need to throw my hat in the ring to speak when other people have spoke on the same things. But I will reiterate that when we allow tax exemptions to grow, that is, that they're not grandfathered in on the existing property. When we allow new property owners to come in, because we do want them on the roll. But that is to say that if the Hill School purchases extenuating property that was a tax-based property, then those properties that are new purchases should be on the tax roll, not that which was grandfathered in. And so when we're looking at these things that we know were related to, say, the Wood or Edgewood, because of an easement scenario or agreement that was there with borough and so forth, when we're looking at these properties that we want business owners to come in and purchase and put on the tax rolls, that's different. That is different. But when we're looking at, and if I'm correct, we said the borough paid, sorry, with the new name, we were looking at the new owners would have that tax exemption if they stayed for X amount of years within the township. Then their taxes could be removed, say 50% or 100% for back taxes that weren't applicable to them, that existed prior to owners. But if they were to leave within a certain period of time, then those taxes would come full circle and be due. There was some discussion with that. Likewise, if they are existing and they're not grandfathered in on new purchases, that we should be looking at those as continuing tax roll properties. Regardless of what they want to roll them into, they are tax-based properties. So I don't know how we can use that for discussion with the council and so forth, and what the discussions are that they have with, you know, the Hill and other owners. But I'd like that to be a considerable conversation that we have with them.
And Mrs. Bearden, were you talking about the LERTA?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It took me a minute too. I was like, I think you're talking about the LERTA. And that, my understanding is, you know, this isn't my bailiwick, obviously, but I do get reports. But my understanding is that is still fully in place and functional, at least for those who are using it. Again, it's a slice of the pie. It's certainly not the whole pie. Okay, Mr. Hilton, hearing nothing else, I think that everyone is in agreement for me to put this on the board agenda next Thursday. Am I correct?
I believe so.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I don't know if there was
And
any.
just to let you know, I'll be a no vote on that. So please make it non-consent, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Zippe, yep, thank you.
So are we at federal shutdown USDA?
I mentioned that already. It's United States Department of Agriculture. The federal shutdown may be affecting our lunch reimbursements. That would be a sizable amount. I asked Mrs. Kozik if we did not get reimbursed for the month of October, what would be your estimate of monies put out by the school district in order to feed all 3,300 students every single day for the whole month? And she said right around $300,000. So I don't know how long the shutdown will last, but I told board members that I'll keep you informed as it relates to some of our financial constraints. That could be a big one. As of right now, there is enough money to reimburse because we spend it first, then they reimburse it. So there's a time lag. So August and September is fully covered. We will see about October. And that is all. I see Mr. Armato has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. So you've spoken a little bit to the issue of both the state and federal government not being forthcoming with some of the money that we need to run our district. And I'm not sure of the math, but I think we're like 108 days we're in a row now waiting for the state to pass a budget. And if what I think I was reading earlier today, it didn't seem like anybody was overtly enthusiastic in Harrisburg about resolving the issues that are keeping them apart anytime in the near future, and started talking about December as a possibility. I'm wondering where do we stand in terms of how much money are we not receiving on a monthly basis from the state? What's it cost us to run the district on a monthly basis? Because it seems like we're headed in a direction where none of us really want to be.
Okay. So we passed about a $91 million budget to complete all operations for the entire school district over a course of about 12 months. If memory serves, and this is rough math, so forgive me, we can definitely have Mrs. Oakley do a little bit more in terms of math if the board wants more than my rough math. But we're about 50% from state and federal, about 50% from local taxpayers in terms of revenue. So roughly speaking, come January, we're running on fumes. Now, we do have a fund balance, so it wouldn't be, January 6th, everybody stays home or, people aren't getting paid, but it would become very, very uncomfortable. I think one of the questions that you asked was how much money are we talking about? Again, rough math, if probably around $3.8 million a month. And the way that I figured that out, you just take 91 million divided by 12. That's about $7.6 million to operate every 30 days. That's everything from salaries to the electric. And 50% of that is right around 3.8 ish.
Yes, and I wasn't looking for exact Jim Bush to the dollar and penny answers. One of our former business managers. I wasn't looking for that answer. However, I was looking for you to help us emphasize the point that we as a school district, we as a community are being put into continual jeopardy because the stalemate in Harrisburg cannot be resolved. And it might help if actually the Senate was in session to help resolve the problem, which says to me there doesn't seem to be any immediacy on their part, although they are still all drawing a salary, okay, to help resolve the problems of the school districts across the Commonwealth and the communities across the Commonwealth. So I'm trying to be as nice and polite as possible, but I think it would be in everyone's best interest if all of our community members got on the phone, called their legislators in Harrisburg, their senator, and say, we need to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
So unless you brought this up before and I missed it again, you have information for us, Mr. Rodriguez, Student Board Representative update?
Yes, just wanted everyone to be aware, it is October, so our new junior board reps will be joining us for the official swearing in at the October board meeting. So I'm very happy to announce them, but we'll leave all that go. I just wanted to make sure, since typically we try and give you all the information possible during committee meetings, they'll be with us.
Okay, so do we have any public comment as we reach the end of this meeting?
Not at this time, Mr. Hilton.
Then I will call it adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, so we will open up with the public relations and community engagement meeting. Are there any public comments in the last 10 seconds?
Not at this time, Mrs. Johnson.
Thank you. Before we dive into what will be the bulk of the meeting tonight, I do just want to say something about the state budget, and I guess this can suffice as my advocacy update, whatever. To what John said, there's no budget. We all know there's no budget federally also. Quite the joy to be living in a state where not only is our state budget not done, but our federal budget is all kinds of messed up too. So, but I did want to clarify for the record, the Senate was in session this week along with the House. And I will also say, I, for a little bit there, thought there was progress, but then it again seems to keep dissolving. So, that being said, I do think it's worth continuing to reach out, especially to the Senate side. But it, I have no words. It's just wild. So, that being said, we will go into the educational travel presentation that Mr. Rodriguez has prepared. It is set up to be part discussion, part whatever, Mr. Rodriguez, you want it to be in terms of questions you ask. All board members are very much welcome to be a part of this. This is not just for committee members. So if you are not typically a part of this committee, feel free to consider yourself so for this meeting, because I think we've got some really interesting information and some really good discussion coming up. So, Mr. Rodriguez, you can take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So as I'm thinking about this, you know, I'm a natural born is probably a poor way of putting it, but I'm very comfortable in teaching mode, and teaching mode is how I've presented this material to our own staff. So I have a couple of spots, and I'm just taking a moment now to talk about it. Mrs. Johnson gave me the full time period, but I have a feeling it won't quite be that long. But I am looking for interaction. So I'm going to be asking a couple of questions, and if you would use the chat, if you're like, I really don't want to be on screen right now, you know, I can maybe call out some thoughts if I see them in the chat, or you can just share them. Just also know that as I present this material, it's great information. I'm not necessarily looking to change everything that we're doing. So one of the things that I told our administrators is this is going to broaden our perspective, but and it very likely will change some things, but I'm not looking to direct that change as a result of this information being shared. So with those caveats given, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I am going to say thank you to artificial intelligence, which helped me put this together, just like the last one. I still had to load a lot of pictures, but it helped me format a lot of stuff and put together some things. So everyone can see the screen there that says a quest for knowledge, traveling abroad. Yes, okay, great, thank you. So please break in with any questions. I don't mind being interrupted, and I'm watching the time here. So the company that gave this tour, it is part of their giving back, so to speak, and also part of their mission to make sure that people are being educated as a result of you know, travel being it's EF Tours, and that's education first tours. So it's literally part of their name. So I won the scholarship, went to the Baltic Circle, as you can see there. And although, you know, it's not something you can bring your spouse to or your family or anything of that sort, and we're busy the entire time, but we definitely experienced what some of our students were experiencing with the fact that we're away from home, we're away from everything that is comfortable, and all of our relationships were put on hold. And I admit it was hard, and I had some regret. Thankfully, my wife told me, listen, you're going to learn a lot. You need to put your head down and keep going. So that's what I did. Here are just a couple of quotes that I find fascinating, and quite frankly, it connects what we've been trying to do with education equity, giving more students from our school district the opportunity to travel. I travel because it makes me realize how much I haven't seen, how much I'm not going to see, and how much I still need to see. It's all about perspective. There are no foreign lands. It's the traveler who's foreign. And I'll end with this one, my favorite. Travel's the only thing you buy that makes you richer. So I went to Scandinavia, and we had to do a lot of research. I was surrounded by other educators from across the country, a huge group from Colorado, a group from California, a group from Texas, and a few other disparate places. So you can see me there in that huge crowd of, and it was a very diverse crowd. So I really appreciated that. We had a lot of people from all over the place. So we got to learn from each other as well as from the travel experience. So I'm going to go here very quickly through some of these slides. If you feel like I am going too quickly, you can slow me down, but I don't want to be boring. So Stockholm was a beautiful area. Sweden is the country, 10 million people. Stockholm is a bunch of islands all put together with a lot of bridges, as you can see there. So we were able to fit in some cultural highlights and kind of see what the tourists saw, but obviously that wasn't what it was all about. One of the major connections to education is Alfred Nobel of the Nobel Peace Prize, which definitely has affected the way the Swedes think about their education system. So here's just some history, and some of this will lead to a point. I'm going to ask you to participate in just a minute here. So these streets, one of the sayings in Sweden is, oh, that's as old as the streets, because these streets are literally original to the time when people began to live and develop here. So the streets are very old. There was never a repaving job done here. They are the first streets that were made. Another one that caught my attention as it relates to the educational equity value that they bring to their system is love me when I least deserve it, because that's when I really need it. And then one just for fun is there is no cow on the ice, which, without that context, it sounds very silly. There is no cow on the ice. What are you talking about? But in Sweden, where it is oftentimes cold, if a cow wanders onto the ice, that's an emergency. But if the cow is not on the ice, there's no emergency. So that's all they really mean by that. Okay, so I talked about Nobel Peace Prize and how Alfred Nobel has actually impacted every single year. Swedish students win the opportunity to go see the Nobel Peace Prize, and this is the place that they do it. And every single year they're challenged with how to essentially change the world. So you can see here me being a bit of a dork, but also the fact that there's a lot of historical. If you've ever seen a Disney movie, you probably don't think of Sweden, but many of the regalia that we associate with king and queen, etc., was actually born in this land. So, and you can see more of it there with their soldiers, and they go through activities, and the tourists get to watch them. They do that every single day, Monday through Friday. So the first activity here, and something for you to consider as we move into this, is how do you think culture affects education, or does it? Um, what is the relationship between culture and education? We often talk about in America the culture wars, which is more the political side of things. But let's think a little bit about education. So I will pause. You can either write something in the chat or feel free to share, or I'll just stay awkwardly quiet.
Here's a question that comes to mind when I look at this. And I think when people hear the word culture, I think sometimes we struggle to define what that even means. So I wonder, I don't even have the suggestion, the answer to this question, but I wonder if we can say it a different way, or not to say not to that the question needs to be rephrased, but how do we say more about what the question is? What is culture in this
Yeah.
context?
Yeah. That's a great question. So when I say how does culture affect education, culture is an all-inclusive term to the values of a people. That's how I would describe it. The values of a people. So when we think of culture, we think of everything from greasy fries and hamburgers to how we celebrate, our what we eat when we celebrate, and what's polite to do versus what's not polite to do when we greet each other. So I mean, culture can be, I think, really.
Yeah, that right.
Well, I mean, be honest, we have a culture as a nation.
Mhm.
Pennsylvania has its own culture unto itself. And we
Yes,
certainly talk about how Pottstown has its own culture.
Hmm.
I agree.
So, I mean, it's all encompassing, but yet it's absolutely different in each individual. I mean, people.
Reminder. Snowball's insulin.
Sorry, time to give the kitty insulin. He can wait a minute. But the culture in Pennsylvania would be much different than the culture in Texas than would be in Washington State. Is
Okay.
there an American culture anymore? It's kind of wondering. So I think, like everyone says, all politics is local and education should be local. I mean, really, I think the culture that affects it the most is the local culture.
Hmm.
And certainly you might be able to say, well, it's the culture from Perk Valley to Boyertown to Upper Perkiomen. They're a little different, but I think Pottstown has a unique culture. And I
Yeah.
think that affects our education more than I would say other districts in the area.
Yeah, great answer. Great answer. Mrs. Bearden.
Hi, so my first ask was going to say how are we utilizing the word culture. So spot on, and then I wanted to hear how others thought of it. But for me, I look at culture as being ingrained in society. And so if it's ingrained in society, then it absolutely is aligned and a part of our educational process and arena. You certainly see the similarities depending upon how you look at things. But you can also see the differences and they affect how we communicate. It affects how we understand one another. And it's quite important for us bringing our students up with the right mind frame to continue to allow for us as a country to grow and flourish, as well as how we interact with other countries. So we are, as one would say, emaciated with culture and education.
And a word I might add is also just what our expectations are. I feel like in any culture, whether it's real local or national or whatever, there are unspoken expectations. And I think about that a lot with this question. How does culture affect education? And to me, it's because it's partly about what we expect schools to be, what we expect a good education is, all of that plays in.
So if I'm hearing everyone correctly, and those who are off screen and just listening, please feel free to use the chat. I've got it open, and I won't call it out per se, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I think if I'm hearing everyone correctly, everyone is saying, it culture does affect education, and it affects education, pretty at least to a major degree, maybe not completely, but to a major degree, it affects education. Would anyone disagree with that? All right. Well, very good. Thanks, everybody. Let's see if I can get this screen to move correctly. There we go. Okay. So I've got just a couple of pictures that you can see. There's in Sweden, there's definitely a bike culture. I took this picture mainly for Mr. Hilton so he could see bikes were everywhere. Bike lanes were everywhere. And I found it surprising because it's so cold there most of the time. But anytime it's not actively snowing, apparently they're using bikes. So, and again, it's an archipelago, so this is the land of the Vikings, but I thought that it would be interesting for everyone to know a little piece of history that I didn't know. So I've heard of the Kalmar Union. Like, what is that? Well, back in almost 1397 AD, the only queen of Sweden, whose name was Queen Margaret, said, hey, we spend a lot of time, the Swedes are killing the Norwegians are at war with the Denmarkians, and so on and so forth. What if we all kind of group together and protect one another and go Viking all the other people that are out in the ocean? And everyone thought that was a pretty good idea. And the Kalmar Union, since then, they've all, although they are separate people, they have all acted in concert with one another. So I found that fascinating and wanted to share. So let's talk about the education system as we're moving along here, and we're now officially past the intro. So I'm going to dive right in here. So the first activity was all about culture. I think you're going to see we're gonna start with culture. We're going to land with culture. But here are some of the intricacies of the education system as I learned. So you can see that they split up their system into 4 different parts. What we would call preschool, and then once you turn 6, they have what we would call kindergarten, and then they move into, and they don't make the distinction line between elementary and middle. For them, it's all compulsory. So from 1st grade to 9th grade, it's compulsory education. After that, they move on to the what they call upper secondary. And then in the upper secondary, they've got a core list of subjects. You'll notice that everyone in Sweden has to study and pass English. And when I asked a little bit about that, I said, why is that? Why English? Why not French or something else? And they said, English, 1.5 billion people speak English. It is what do they call it? The language of trade. So, I can talk a little bit more about that, but it was interesting to go there. And I have a little bit of experience traveling internationally, not a lot, but where I went, if you didn't speak English, it was difficult to get around. You had to know at least a little bit of the mother tongue, or the tongue of where you're at. Not true in Sweden, not true in Finland. They speak English, and again, part of their reasoning is we want to be able to communicate with the rest of the world, and we know that we're a small part of that world. So, and then you can see some of the other subjects that are what I would call pretty typical.
I have a question, if I can,
That's
with
me.
with the extra subjects, let's call them back there. Home
Yeah.
economics, and there was another one, handicrafts.
Yeah.
Can you say a little bit more about what you saw with those subjects?
Yes, I saw more of it in Finland because in Sweden, we were able to learn about this schools, but because we went to the Nobel Peace Prize and whatnot, we didn't actually get in there. But it is my understanding, and I'll have some pictures later that'll show this. They expose their children to tools at a much younger age than we do. We would probably get in trouble with OSHA and everybody else in between if we did what they did, but it's part of their culture. So great question. I will show a little bit more of that in just a couple minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So moving on, they do have special education, just like we do. I found that fascinating. Once you pass your different tests, and they have what we would call basic academic achievement tests, then you basically split up into 2 separate groups. Either you're going to go into a school to work / career and tech model, or you're going to go into a more rigorous academic college model, and that's how it is. So before I explain the rest of this system and then move on, because I'll split this up between Sweden and Finland, can somebody tell me, and you guys can shout this out because I know it's only going to take you about 30 seconds or so, but what are the pros and cons of an education system that's based on school choice, or what we would often call voucher? And maybe just explain a little bit of your answer. So pros and cons of a voucher or school-based school choice system.
I'm gonna let other people answer this one.
All right. Well,
Oh, it looks like Ms. Bearden has one.
go ahead, please.
I'm not going to say my opinion or in the board's opinion, but I would think for most people, the pros of educational system choice are that if one, they don't feel their student is receiving the education that they desire, they can go to the school of choice. If they believe their student is more focused in a specific area, it allows their student to go to maybe a school that's curtailed to that sort of subject or focus area. And or if their student learns in a different manner, as most students are not, they're not all the same. They don't learn the same way. But if they believe their student really benefits from a specific sort of environment and that other school educates more to that sort of practice, then they would assume that their student would flourish in a different school. And so choice is much better for them. The cons that we see, unfortunately, though I might agree that those all sound good in theory, what we do tend to see are those schools are not held, so to speak, to the same sort of learning and requirements that, say, PDE in our state would require. And so then those students may either be at a disadvantage going into a higher level of learning, and or if they need to acclimate to a different sort of school, maybe they will be less apt to have the social skills because their school was more of this versus that. I think those are the most logical pros and cons of school choice. Neither right nor wrong, just putting it out there.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Hopefully those off camera are saying, yes, that's kind of what I would have said. So I mean, we've contemplated this issue where in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we have 13 million people. We have about 1.7, 1.8 million students in our education system. And in Sweden, they've been doing this for a long time. They now they are a much more homogenous people. They're not nearly as diverse as we are, and they're much smaller. The country of Sweden is akin to a smaller Pennsylvania. But yeah, they went in 1992. They went to a what we would identify as a voucher system. So everybody has a curriculum that they're required to use, but they can be private schools, they can be public schools, or what they often call as municipal schools. And they've been doing it for quite some time. And according to the people that we talk to, it is wildly controversial. And there are people who are very, very pro-choice and others who are very, very anti-voucher, if I can put it in that term. So here's what the after
Real quick, I
Yes, sir.
did want to stop before you went on to that about vouchers.
Yes,
And like you said, this is a country where I don't want to say they have a huge poverty difference.
they do.
They do, but I guess you said it's a more
They're not poor.
no. So I mean, you could do. I mean, to me, in a setting where if you said, like for example, we have Western Monco, Votech. A lot of the districts send their kids there. But if you were to, look at a local university, and you'd said, well, what kind of programs? Well, they have a business program. They have medical programs. All right, they have art and music programs. They have so STEM. You have this kind of starting to form. The problem I see in our areas is that you build a facility, you have so many students, and just like I'll say with Renaissance Academy, there's more demand than there would be supply. I mean, I think back and I said, well, Maddie's graduated, but if I could have put her in 6 years of school for art and design, yeah, I would have done something that she gets a regular education and then is concentrated on that for that period of time. If someone said they're into STEM, if someone says they're into technology, yeah, certainly you can have that, but on a scale as wide as us, I mean, you would have to suddenly have a school district that would be the size of the PAC. And then you'd have to say, okay, this is now 10 school districts in a consortium, and now we can have a STEM academy in this area, and we could have an art school in this area. And now you could actually create a university style K-12 system, or not even K-12. I'd say just like with the Hill School,
Right,
6
yeah,
forms.
six or
And
not.
you could do that, but it would require huge expense. It would require, once again, you say local culture. The culture would not allow that in an area as wide as the tri-county area.
Well, let's assume that we did the grand Pac-10 or whatever it's more than 10 now, right? It's Pac-12.
Oh yeah,
So
but
let's
just
say
that tri-county area, and said,
tri-county
now
area.
let's
So
turn that into an area with different schools. Every high school would have its own feature or function. 12 high schools with 12 different magnets to them.
what would be the major expense?
Probably transportation course number one, because if I have to send my kid to Methacton every day because that's where the School of Art and Design is, well, then how are they going to get there? Same thing if they have to travel up to Upper Perkiomen for agricultural tech. Well, guess what? We got to transport them up there every day. That is
So,
where the problem is.
and thank you for that, because that was my question as well. And in this system, there is no transportation for anyone ever, except for, obviously if you're in a wheelchair, they set up some level of special education transportation, but transportation is basically unheard of. They don't do it except for the most disabled.
Now,
So
how's public transportation though?
I mean, well, you saw that most people use bikes. There is more public transportation. There's the tube or the train. That absolutely is a factor. But obviously, once you move out of some of the urban areas, that's less of a factor. Oops. Sorry, my finger slipped there. But yeah, I mean, because our culture is different, we don't like the idea of first graders walking to school by themselves. In Sweden, they've never done anything different. So anyway, I'll keep going here. But that was great commentary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So according to them, pros, you guys nailed many of these things. Increased competition, social mobility, a little bit more efficient, better choice, which was what Mr. Heidel was talking about, the idea of an agricultural high school or a design and arts high school. I mean, that sounds great. It's just that it's really, really expensive to do, um, depending on the situation. So also addressing bullying and innovation. So then the cons, and the cons, they are many. In fact, the guy that I was asking many of these questions to said that he believes that this system will eventually be overturned, because every year the issues continue to creep up, and that's in a very homogeneous environment. So grade inflation, and grade inflation doesn't mean a whole lot, to us, but imagine if you could pick and choose who's taking the PSSAs to make yourself look good. So there's definitely some of that going on. Increased segregation in many ways. What we talked about with vouchers, if vouchers were ever done in Pennsylvania, it would potentially leave the public schools or government schools or municipal schools or whatever you want to call them with the most needy students, and those students and or families of greater means would send their kids to other places, thereby creating huge inequities. And I find it interesting that in a place that is very, very homogenous, they are seeing huge discrepancies.
Quick
Uh,
question. Are
yes.
there communities, like their neighborhoods, also fairly economically, are they more segregated economically, or are they more integrated?
Um, Based on my understanding and my observation, I would say that they are more segregated. The rural schools are very rural. The urban schools are urban, and the private schools are private. So you can tell some of the private schools where, yes, I take my voucher, right, which found out was around $10,000 or $11,000, and that's very valuable to a school. But what they do then is, okay, I take my 11,000, but this private school would have cost me 15,000, so now it only cost me 4 or 5,000. So you still get exclusivity in the system. So from the state's perspective, it's the same 11,000 I'm spending whether it's a municipal school or a private school. But the outcome ends up being that the students who go to the municipal school don't get the extra $6,000 in tuition to be spent at their school. So
Okay.
as you can see here, discipline concerns, those people who can't pay are oftentimes the ones who have discipline issues. So they end up kind of all in the same place: profit motives, administrative burden, and performance questions. So the performance, okay, maybe it's going down a little bit, but I mean that's probably not the strongest argument. But the other arguments there, I'd say, are pretty sound. So, I mean, no question, the jury is still out as far as the Swedish people are concerned. But what was going through my mind is I can't wait to talk to a couple of senators and representatives who think this is a good idea, because these people have tried it. And although they're around 50-50 or 51-49, there's a lot of unrest as a result of their system. So I see here it's 28 minutes left, and I really don't want to use it all. So I'm gonna move a little faster if that's okay. And I did stop in to see Estonia. Estonia, again, talking about culture. More than a third of their country speaks fluent Russian. We as the Americans, as we were looking down the coastline and realizing that we were only a few hundred miles away from the Russian border, it was a little nerve-wracking. So in Estonia, which has made huge strides, which I'll show here in just a moment or two, they have been conquered numerous times. And that definitely shows they do not want to be conquered again. And so the threat of Russia is highly motivating to them. Interestingly, they have secure electronic voting. As far as I know, when last I checked, they were the only country in the world to have all of their citizens with the option to vote electronically from the safety of their home, and securely. So now they're a little smaller than we are. So anyway, okay, moving on. Finland, that's where I spent the most time and definitely learned the most. And it's got a lot of historical significance. You'll notice here that they gained their independence in 1917. Otherwise, they were run by Sweden through the 1600s, and then in the 1800s, for about a little over 100 years, they were run by Russia. But the Finnish people are very, very well, they're crazy about being Finns. There's 5.5 million Finnish people, and they are very, very proud of where they are, which I'll go through in a second. So most of us are familiar with the idea of sauna. We say sauna, they say sauna. And sauna is part of the cultural experience there, which again, I'll explain a little bit more. Hopefully it'll come together. But essentially, what we found fascinating as the Americans looking in, there's 5.5 million Finns who live in Finland. There are 3.5 million saunas. Some are larger ones that you find in hotels or in big bathhouses. We got to visit one of those houses that can fit like 15 people at a time, and some just go right in the comfort of someone's home. And I got to see both. The Finns take time to relax and talk to their family, which we found interesting. So,
Wait, did you try the sauna?
yes, I did, and I
How
loved it.
high temperature did you get to?
Probably around, according to the Finns that we were with, it was below 200, but way above 170, probably around 180, 190. It was hot. When I took a breath in, it was like I was swallowing fire. It was hot.
I would like to do that. I would.
Yeah,
Jumping in the river is nothing compared to doing that. Did you feel like totally
Oh yeah.
clean out?
It was great. It was great. And we did jump in a lake. Now it was summertime there, but the lake water was still in upper 50s, lower 60s. It was cold because it gets frozen over. But yeah, we do it incorrectly here. We pretty much go into a steam room, but the Finns would say you must do both. You must go back and forth or you don't get the and there's I Googled it. It's true. So anyway, okay, thank you for the question. I'll continue here. So the Finnish system was very unique, and there is a reason why so many educators are studying their way of doing things. So last activity, got 24 minutes here. What do you know about PISA, or the Program for International Student Achievement? Is anyone familiar with this? You are familiar with it, whether you know it or not, but does that ring a bell, PISA? All right, for sake of time, I'll keep the awkward silence to a minimum. We all know PISA because we're often told on the 6 o'clock news how terrible we are as an education system. Well, I can't believe we're 14th place or last place in math and last place in this and last place in that. I'm not sure, what they're looking at, but the most well-known and internationally accepted student comparison test is PISA. And again, there it is, Program for International Student Achievement. And they take 5,200 students from every single country that participates, which isn't quite 180, but it's really high. And that's where they get the results. So, for if there's any educators watching, the first thing they're probably thinking is, I wonder what it is they're testing, and that's a very good question. But I noted here, as you can see on the screen, and I'll call out the highlights just in case you can't. But the first five: Singapore, Macau, otherwise known as China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan. Number 6 is South Korea. Then we get to Estonia, 7, which I was in that region of the world. Move down to number 20, that's Finland. 22, that's Sweden. Oh, that's great. Number 34, number 33 is Malta. Number 34 is the United States, and number 35 is Slovakia. So many people would say, well, what is going on? How is the United States so low? And why are some of these other countries doing so much better? So there's so much that I could get into as it relates to just this test, because education can be seen and argued as a leading indicator or a lagging indicator. So does everybody know what I mean when I say that, leading indicator, lagging indicator? Like, a leading indicator, if you're sick is probably a fever, or you're beginning to get run down, or you're starting with a cough. That's a leading indicator. Mrs. Johnson.
I was just gonna say it makes me think a little bit, and it's probably not exactly this, of the difference between causation and correlation. Almost in that sense of like, is our education system what's driving these scores, or are these scores what they are because of other factors, or because like, is it early or is it late? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my brain went.
No, those are all excellent points. Yes, Mr. Heidel.
Now, I was going to say, like, your leading indicator is, well, what's Estonia doing that moved them so far up the list? Or is it a lagging indicator as to, like, why Canada has moved down? What's changing that moves one person up while other people are moving down?
This is the question of the ages, right? So I'll make a couple of different points. So point number one, if you pull back, we're talking about education, but let's pull back and say, there's an activity that I have the administrators do, and I say, listen, you're king or queen of a region of America for the day. What would you change to make your system the best that it can be? And what we get out of that, and we often, what ends up happening is we change the things that we don't like in our current system. But the leading indicator and lagging indicator question it actually comes down to economics. So why do you want smart citizens? So that they can make money, so that they can be of value to your country, so that they're smart enough to protect your country and invent stuff that will keep you on the cutting edge of things. So Finland, as an example, less than 100 years ago, was a country of loggers. I mean, that was their mainstay of economic production. They were loggers. And of course, now they're much more diverse. So the leading indicator in terms of education is actually the economy. So I say that to say, like, first of all, we often get, when I see this in the press now, I see it as totally different. Oh, the United States is terrible in this and terrible in that. Well, okay. But if education is a leading indicator of economics, the United States of America has the strongest economic system in the world by a wide margin. So we actually are doing a few things right. That being said, we should also consider this to be a little bit of a danger zone, because if we keep falling down the list, it means that others will potentially take over. Okay, done with that. Let me move on to some of the education pieces here. I'm getting all excited, sorry. So one of the things that we look at, and now I'm going to talk about sports. So I don't know if Mr. Amato is on or not, but I know that he'll enjoy this, and he's heard this from me before. So if you've got a cross country team, which is essentially a running team, there he is. There's a couple of easy ways of doing. So if I don't know what I'm doing as a coach, I know that I've got 3.1 miles that my kids are going to run. They're going to run a race every week. So how am I going to train them? I'm making this up a little bit, but bear with me. You'll see what I mean. You run your kids 5 miles a day. That's it. You just do 5 miles a day, so that when race day comes, maybe we'll take one day off, because PIAA makes me, but, and you can run on your own, but we won't have practice. But you run 5 miles a day. And that way, when you run that 3 miles, you'll have a good chance of doing really well and coming in fast. Now, as a philosophy, does that make sense to anybody? Anybody want to argue, the point of that plan, even if it doesn't work out? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, thank you. So now, if we think about that team, and you look at this list, how is Singapore, Macau, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, how are they doing this? How are they winning all the races, so to speak? Well, the answer is simple. We already know, because others have gone over there and there's tons of commentary on it. They run 20 miles a day, every day. They basically outpace everybody by, they're in school they basically have 3 different meals, and it's all in school. Some of it is like tutoring after school, but it's all school, and they do a lot of school, and it's part of the ethos of those countries. So we don't want to do that. We feel like we're in school enough. We feel like we're tested enough. We don't want to do that. Therein lies Finland. And the reason that so many people admire their country or their system is because, to use that cross country example, they don't run on Saturday. They never run on Sunday. 3 days a week, they run 5 miles. The other 3, they walk 2 miles. And they're still number 20. So how are they doing much less than we're doing at 5 miles a day, except on Sunday? And yet they're getting so much better results. And that's the question. So the Finnish factor, again, I highlighted the stuff that matters. Less standardized testing leads to better outcome. Shorter school days results in more effective learning. And trusting teachers produces higher professional standards. Now, that's a loaded question. So It's not just a matter of, oh, so we don't trust our teachers enough. That's not it. They have a whole system set up there. But that's the Finnish miracle in education. It's a paradox. They seem to do less and yet they get better results. So why is it? All right, I had to throw in a couple of pictures. So some of you may recognize the guy in blue that says athletic freak there is Dr. Tony Watlington. He's the superintendent for the school district of Lancaster. Then uh, Chris Dormer, Dr. Dormer from Norristown, of course, me, Carolyn Johns, and John Council. Carolyn is from the Pittsburgh area, and John is from Upper Darby. So we went to the national what we would know as the United States Department of Education, except for Finland. So the National Education Department, that's where we went, and that's where we studied. So we got to look at all the culture and we got to talk to people, which was great. This is several different shots of a library. Again, you want to talk about culture? We were taking these shots at like 8:30 at night in Helsinki during the summer. The sun doesn't go down until about midnight. So at 8:30, 9 o'clock, we're wandering around trying to soak in as much as we can. And we come to a humongous library that is filled with people. They have everything from video games to, you can see some of the electronics and technology there, to books, to just huge areas where people hang out. And the artwork, you can see the kid artwork all over the place. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, it looks like a picture of a sidewalk. You can see sneakers there. It is a sidewalk. It's also got Braille in there. Part of their ethos is that we're going to take care of everybody, and they do. So again, talking about culture, this place, I'll never forget it. It's called Suomenlinna. They like their syllables in Finland. Suomenlinna was a place where they built ships until they had a civil war. And the young man there who was going to college for history and is a minority in his country of Finland, he's a Swede. So there's a segment of Swedes in Finland, and they are basically the minority of their country. So he talked about the Civil War, and he's like, yes, in the United States, you had the North and then you had the South. Well, imagine that same thing, except there are no borders. Neighbors fight neighbors, and they slaughtered each other to the tune of 10% of their nation. And it was conservatives versus it's doing my thumb there. Sorry, folks. As soon as it sees a thumb, it pops up with a very inappropriate thumbs up there. So that and it's actually something that is not appropriate to talk about. And our he told us that some grandmothers and great grandmothers, great grandfathers, etc., may have spent time in one of these prison camps. This was turned into a prison camp for the losing side. And it was the Russians or the threat of Russia that actually brought the country together. So again, culture has influenced their education system. So they go after it when it comes to their education, and they organize themselves and said, how can we be a much better nation and a much more prepared nation? Everything from defense to economy. This is the actual school that we got to visit. We got to visit there a couple of times, and we got to see all sorts of differences. They do not have what we call gang bathrooms. They have individual bathrooms. They also have recess. When they have recess, all 800 kids go out at once. Guess how many Finns or adults it takes to supervise 800 children going out to recess at the same time? Now, just to give you an idea, one per 25, that would mean 4 adults for every 100 kids in an American system, at minimum, 4 adults. So I don't know what 4 times 8 is, but I feel like it's a lot. How many
Yeah.
how many adults do you think they use in the Finnish system? Any guesses?
I'm gonna guess it's 5 or something really low like that.
It's exactly 5. 5 adults are out there. All the other adults are planning on the inside. 5 adults cover everything. It's very, very different. So you can see some of the artwork, and you can see this was my viewpoint of as we were learning, and that young man was our trainer. And this is the picture that I promised you, Mrs. Johnson. By the second or third grade, the students in Finland are being exposed to all sorts of equipment that we don't let our ninth graders touch. And when I say that, I'm being very serious. Like, we don't let them touch this stuff. But it is part of the classroom procedures in third through ninth grade in Finland. So the landing gear is coming down, and I'll let you guys ask me some questions if you like. So here's some things that the Finns have that I've noticed as a difference. They have something called sisu or sisu, depending upon sisu. And we would they talk about it. We talked about it. We asked them about it. It is what we would roughly translate into grit. But that grit would be Russia is 192 million people. True story. Russia is 192 million people. They're going to come after us. We're going to fight them in the snow to the point of near malnutrition, and we will not submit. And that's Sisu, and it is part of their system. They also do not compare schools. They find it fascinating that we cut each other down and say, you're number one, you're number 500, you stink, you're awesome. That is a foreign concept that they consider to be completely ridiculous. And now so do I. Test results are individual. They do not have school test results. They have student test results. And the emphasis on learning is not with a system, it's with a person. And it's fascinating how everyone in Finland and Sweden, quite frankly, and Estonia as well, consider that to be normal, and what we do to be strange, completely strange. Also, I found this fascinating. You know, the Pottstown School District has lawsuits or threats of lawsuits every single year. We employ not only Mr. Kalis, but several of his associates on all aspects of law. Does anyone want to guess how many times and let's go with a per year scenario. The school that I visited, how often do you think they are sued in one school year? Anybody? Throw a number out there.
10.
Thank you. The answer is 0. 5 years, 0. 10 years, 0. Have they ever been sued? No. To everyone's knowledge, and I ask multiple times, are you telling me that? And they do have special ed. They have about the exact same special ed number that we do, about 20 to 25%, depending on the area. They do not sue each other, period. So culture intertwines with schools, and effective education systems recognize this. That was one of the huge takeaways. It's also something we learned from each other going across going through the country. Like in Texas has no teachers unions. Found that very fascinating. It's got nothing to do with Finland, but it was just such a huge difference. And they were like, why would we need that? We got to pay teachers the going rate. And they do. They pay teachers the going rate. And there are some differences. But yeah, it was fascinating. So again, coming back to that question of, is education a leading indicator or a lagging indicator? And I think that you can make a strong argument that it can be both, but it is more a leading indicator because Finland is proof. They went from being a nation of loggers to being a force to be reckoned with. They have 1,800 miles of secure border with Russia and have had to date no incursions. So they figured out a few things, and they're doing pretty well. So there's more that they do break down exactly what they believe makes their country, or rather their education system, stronger. But that's too much. And I did give a lot of those details to our administrators. That dives into the details of the education system. But this is definitely what I would consider to be the big takeaways in terms of the differences. So I will pause. And sorry, I probably got a little more excited and into it than my audience, but as you can see, I'm passionate about what I learned. Are there any questions?
I mean, I will, but I was wait. Does anybody have anything else? What jumped out to my fellow board members?
Well, I think the challenge, and we've talked about it before, is the culture. How do you influence the culture that supports the types of things that Mr. Rodriguez experienced in Finland?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I get very excited about this stuff. Because I feel like there's been a lot of conversations lately that some that we've had here on the board, but also even this week, one that I had at the Montgomery County School Directors Legislative Committee, talking about rethinking education. Like, what do we? You talked about the Scandinavian countries and some of the countries that were at the top of the list and the different approaches people take. And I think what jumps out to me about that is like, it's about answering the question, what do you want? In China, if they want, I mean, they just want to like totally like destroy everybody else in math, and they're like putting the work in to do that they're running the 20 miles a day, to use your analogy. And I think a lot of people, at least that I know, look at that and they're like, yeah, but we don't want that. Like, we don't want that that lifestyle or quality of life for our kids. We want something else. And that's why we turn to Sweden and Finland and we think that's what we want, because they're doing less testing, in many cases, fewer hours of school, more holistic learning, and yet they're still outperforming us in these ways that we like to measure. And so that's kind of the stuff that gets my mind churning. Like, how do we pivot toward that? But that's a huge question. And that's like not something we're going to solve tonight. It's not something Pottstown School District's going to solve on its own. But I do think it can be part of an ongoing conversation about what of these cultural qualities do we want to nurture here. And so, to kind of thinking about that and anything else you might have, Mr. Rodriguez, what would you like board members to be contemplating going forward? Like, what are the things you would like us to be thinking through? Because if we do want to steer in a direction of rethinking education, whatever that means, what are the kinds of, even thinking professional development for board members, like what are the things that you would encourage us to be thinking about?
Well, thank you for that. And I see Mr. Armato has a question, but I'll answer yours first and quickly, but thoroughly. I think Kaylee Weldon, who was one of the MTSS coaches, you might remember her because she was a teacher of the year, either last year or the year before, who started out at Rupert and then became a coach. She said it really, really well. She said, this broadens our perspective. Like, we often when we went through that exercise of, hey, if you're king or queen, what would you change? Almost everything that we changed was stuff that we're used to. Like, hey, we're going left. I think we should go a little bit more right. But we never even considered up and down because we're just thinking about left and right. So that perspective, why do we get so fascinated with specific scores of students? you guys know that I'm not a big proponent, a test is important, but it's not everything. Why do we continue to shove kids into the hole of everybody has to be prepared for college when it clearly doesn't work? And we need to be, I think, brave enough to consider other perspectives. And some of the ideas that we're going to bring forward, and again, thinking through that process and being open to it, so that when we come with a newer idea, we come with that understanding that maybe we need to. It's not that we have to change our culture. It's oftentimes that our schools don't serve the culture that we're in. And maybe that means that our schools have to change. And if we can get our hands around that, or and our brains around that concept, I think it can lead to some better outcomes. That's not to say that we shouldn't also think about how can we influence the culture. I mean, we all know and see and talk about the fact that we say, hey, our kids don't get outside enough, but we don't want them to walk to school. Like, that's one of the things that we're probably going to have to wrestle with and say, wait a second, there's all these really successful systems where their kindergartners walk to school, and not like one block, like a mile or two. So that's not to say that we're going to erase all the American fears that are associated with that, but it puts us in a much better position to contemplate it, to talk about it, to potentially do something a little bit different than what Perkiomen Valley is doing, or Boyertown is doing, or Pottsgrove is doing. Like, we oftentimes do that, and I do that as well. I want to find out what's working, but this, I think, will allow us a depth that we perhaps didn't have before. Mr. Amato.
I really like that. If I can jump in before I lose it, that idea of looking at the culture we're in, and instead of trying to change it for the schools, but actually, like, what is the best about our culture, our local culture, our state culture, whatever, and how do we actually lean into that? Because of course, in any culture, there's good, there's bad, but like where it's good and the schools aren't serving it, it's the schools that got to change. I really like that. So,
And I'll give you a great example of what I saw. And when I came back, I'm like, man, I feel pretty smart. This is all right. I like it. Because in Sweden and in Finland, they don't have some of the restrictions that we do. So Mr. Armato and I, we were both just happened to be at the high school, and I was going out and talking to our new assistant principal during our lunch and learn, where I saw about 25 kids playing some level of football out. They probably scarfed down their food in about 5 minutes, and then they were out and they were sweating and enjoying the day. And I'm looking around, and she's like, all right, guys, come on, let's go in. And of course they don't quite want to get in, but they definitely, I'm watching, I'm like, are you guys going to be late? And they were not late. They made it there by the skin of their teeth, but they made it there. Number one, that's still a pretty unique thing to have. What we have, we're only like the third high school in this area to have it. But that's the sort of thing, like, when I look at that, I'm like, hey, that's some good stuff right there. And our culture was different than our schools. And we had that cafeteria style school. So instead of saying, hey, you guys need to get better at sitting down and being quiet for 30 minutes and just talking to your friends and stop messing around, instead we threw that out and said, how about you just enjoy yourselves? So that's a good example of how we've already done it. I'm looking for the other stuff where we can continue to have that success.
awesome. Mr. Amato, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, wow. So 14 other thoughts came into my head in between. However, first, we are extremely fortunate as a school district and a community to have Mr. Rodriguez in the leadership position that he is in, because clearly he is an innovative, people-oriented thinker and leader, and I really appreciate it. You could tell the passion in his voice, and I've heard him give this similar type presentation about his trip to different groups that I've been sitting in on, and his passion is easy to see and feel. The the thought that comes to my mind when we talk about culture, and I heard a lot of we and our, and I am reminded of the proverb that it takes a village to build a student. It's a village concept, and this really is what that's about. I believe in terms of culture, it's what we do. He's talking about Finland standing out kind of on its own compared to all these other people. That I think that same thing it can be true of Pottstown. Here we have developed this culture, and most notably centered around our school district mission: prepare each student by name for success at every level. So that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and we have to be prepared to be able to provide the necessary foundations for each student to become successful. And I think quite honestly, I'm very happy with we're headed in the right path. We need to remain consistent and persistent in that, and I believe that at the end of the day, we're going to be happy with the results. Thank you.
Good stuff. Does anyone else have a comment? I know we're past time, but want to make room if anybody does. Mrs. Bearden.
I appreciate the time that Ms. Rodriguez took away from his family to attend and to learn new ways of working and share that knowledge back with us as a district board members. And as we've said, our students are going into different areas. We have a CTE program that is amazing right here in our district, which most have to go outside of their, high school and area in order to have. So that right there says that, we're thinking outside of the box. We are catering to our district. We've been doing that for a long, long time. That's not new. We've had this program for several years. It's just been, it made better each year with our CTE leads and our executive team. So I'm very excited to hear what he's learned and to see where Finland is and the thought process that our parents, as I've relayed to parents and spoke with students, to say that going to college doesn't necessarily make you a millionaire or your measure of success, right? It's great, not putting it down and not putting trade up, right? But right now we know we're looking at the age of AI and digital, and those positions that a lot of professional would quantify as professional positions will be removed or consolidated with AI, and those trades are booming. So I'm happy to hear what Finland has been doing and how they look at things. I would say I was surprised at their voucher program and what their findings were. So that was good to hear. But again, when you're looking at things and how children can walk to school and at what age, and you have to also look at the crime level and those things associated with their surroundings and what are the consequences for their society? Like, really, what do they have when you say, in my thought, I was like, zero. They have zero lawsuits, right? That was just like a guess, right? They have zero, right? And he says zero. Of course, are they even allowed to, right, to sue their school districts, their schools? So, some similarities, some things we certainly can learn and think outside of the box. And I think we've been doing that as a district. We've been working for years trying to find new ways of working that will best suit our students. And I think we'll only get better. And that's an attest to the board members trying to find better solutions and things for our students and our parents to keep moving forward. So I'm happy and I appreciate the presentation very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I think I speak for all of us. I know you're like, oh, I'm more passionate about this than, you guys are ready for, but I really appreciate it. I think that uh, this stuff is exciting when we talk about how we can best serve our students and how we can best work with administration, with teachers, with staff, with parents and community and the students themselves. That is what we're here for. So this is very exciting to me. And I look forward to, I knew there wouldn't be specific action items out of today. This is a part of a bigger conversation, but I look forward to it being an ongoing one where we continue to say okay, here's another thing where we can lean in to the best of our culture, our students' needs, and we can make some changes that are just suitable and that just fit. So thank you.
This could very
Yeah.
easily be a board workshop item where I could go into some of the more intricate details and it would be a danger zone because I know there'd be a couple of people who would hear some of the things that other systems do and be like, hey, I want to do that. And we'd have to go into it with the understanding of different culture. So you can't just strip the ideas out of a cultural basis and then stick it in a different cultural context and say, well, why isn't it working? That being
Culture
said,
moves slow,
yeah,
but yeah.
that's right. But it would be, I think it might be that's something for everyone to consider. And we may not be there in January, but it would be something I would be, it would be a pleasure to give a little bit more information about some of those strategies that they actually use. So we can think about that, but
Cool.
I'll leave it there. So thank you, everybody.
One final comment, and I'd be remiss, I think my mother-in-law would be mad at me if I didn't say this. My mother-in-law is Finnish, so this was so fun to listen to, and you are right, Finnish people are crazy about being Finnish. It's just such a thing. It's fascinating. So, and she's got lots of sisu. So last thing for this meeting, because I already said that advocacy update, there is none. I mean, there is no advocacy. Actually, advocate, reach out, keep calling our senator, representatives, everyone, and letting them know that when government doesn't work, it isn't just in Harrisburg or in DC that it doesn't work. It affects every community that jurisdiction serves. So in addition, I have FAC update. I don't know if Ms. Jackson is on. Yes, good. If you can give a FAC update and honestly, if you have a public comment to tack onto that, feel free to go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Mercedes Jackson, East High Street, Pottstown, PA. I'm just kind of trying to look for my, give me one moment. So first, as far as public comment, no, let me go into FAC stuff first. So FAC, we will be at the trunk and treat at Franklin on the 28th. And we will have a table there. And so for the people who's listening, what we're going to have at the table is a clipboard there with a sign-in sheet for parents who had showed some interest in FAC. So they can just highlight their names so we can reach out to them, because some people, have a change of heart. And we also do realize some people has relocated out of the district. And then we got new folks coming in as well. And Laura and her husband introduced me to a new family that moved in the district. And that I was very appreciative of that. And then on the sign-in, we're going to have some events that we had. and just had pretty much taken a tally of what the people really liked and what they would like to see. And we're just taking some suggestions, what they would like us to like improve on, something they would like to see that we didn't target yet, and things of that nature. Also, FAC, we're going to be doing a restorative circle. There's a lot of amazing programs and lesson planning that happens in the Pottstown School District, but it's only for the employees and the students. So this way, FAC, we want to take some amazing program that families can do at home as well. And we think that we strongly feel that when families can incorporate it at home, it will help their child to become more teachable and reachable. So that is our goal. So we can, bridge that gap between the community, families, and the school district. And then also, I will have my friends who are fluent, bilingual. So for the Spanish speaking families only can also participate and don't feel left out. I'm very big on trying to have everybody feel welcomed and involved. So that's the FAC part. And now just my own public comment. What Mr. Rodriguez had said, that was good stuff. I love to hear that. I love how Pottstown School District is always, just thinking outside the box and just trying to meet people where they are. And I just wanted to say for some parents is any good parent wants their child to be better than them. And so if there's someone who feels less than, doesn't mean that needs to be your child's story. Reach out. There's many resources out here. Closed mouth doesn't get fed. So just continue to pour into your child. I know some families that only their child is the one who graduated, so it can be done. I just would like people just to remain hopeful. If school wasn't a highlight in your life, doesn't mean it can't be a highlight in your child's life. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me speak as usual. Have a blessed week.
Thank you, Mercedes. That's a good word. Any other public comment?
Not at this time, Mrs. Johnson.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we got. Next meeting will be November 13th is what I have written down here. And thank you everyone for sticking with it through this slightly longer than usual meeting. Have a good night.